Good morning and welcome to the Future Proof Leader podcast. I'm Jessica Rapach, co-founder of Twin Legacy Solutions. And today I'm very honored to have Rob Claus. He's the director of the education for the Certified Commercial Property Inspectors Association, the CCPIA. Welcome, Rob, to the show. Can we just kick it off by having you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Jessica. I'd love to. It's one of the few things I actually know. I have been a professional inspector, now I'm going to date myself, since the 80s. Back in the infancy of the world of inspections, I've been in the franchise business, I've been in the private business, I've been in a huge equity business, but I've always been involved in inspections. I've personally performed well over 17,000 inspections, and in 2016, I decided that I hated houses. I decided that I didn't like doing home inspections, and I transitioned our entire company and our entire business line to commercial inspections. I was able to grow a business into a multi-million-dollar business, building commercial property inspections across the Midwest and really across the country to all of our branch offices. And then in 2022, I was able to leave industry, leave the production world, and came on board with the Certified Commercial Property Inspectors Association as their director of education. Since then, we've been developing curriculum, standard of practice, and bringing commercial inspections to the masses.
I love it. Wow, quite the resume there. Well, thanks for what you do. Just a little context for the audience. I know I've mentioned this in podcasts before, but my spinoff company is just dabbling in commercial real estate. So I'm so excited for the conversation because I have so many questions for Rob personally and just in general for the industry. So, like you said, you spent years, decades in the field of property inspecting, right? So what did you see firsthand that made you believe that the commercial property inspection experience needed to evolve? Because I know you're working on a bunch of stuff right now.
Yeah, it's great. When you think about commercial property inspections, it's been largely populated or propagated through banks and private equity, and that their very specific knowledge base is very CapEx and very monetarily driven. And the consumer, when they're getting what they're perceiving as a commercial property inspection, is really just not. They're getting a product that talks more about money than it does about conditions. And while that's great, it's not really what a lot of people look for. When you think of buildings, yeah, there's those giant buildings in the urban areas or giant buildings in the rural areas that have this huge name on the side of it. And that huge name is XYZ. But there's a lot more businesses out there that are making widgets or owned by a family, or the 5-bay mechanics garage, or the building that's in the middle of town that's got 3 restaurants or a lawyer's office on the first floor and 5 apartments above it. There's far more individual people buying businesses than there are these huge portfolio companies, and they need to know about their property. They need to know what the condition is because it's directly affecting their back pockets or possibly their sanity of
100%.
I'm buying this property and now I'm 6 months into this purchase and I'm like, holy moly, I did not know that. And I saw this need in the industry, not me. I'm certainly not that person, but the industry saw this need to say, you know what? There's another product that's missing. This product of the home inspection mantra being translated to the commercial inspection need. And somewhere in 2015, 16, 17, the CCPIA was founded thinking that this is the next frontier. This is what needs to be done. I just jumped on it. And when I started our company in 2016, I saw that need. I saw that standard of practice. And I said, this is what we're going to build. And that's what we did.
Yes. And, a lot of things just resonated with me. So for my specific situation, right? So we are that mixed use property that you're talking about. the restaurant on the bottom, apartments on top. We have multiple levels. I will say we purchased in a historic district, right? I can tell you honestly, and maybe this is a hit on my part, but I don't know what that inspection looked like because what we
Yep.
found when after we purchased the property was that we need to completely gut the thing. It was in a historic district. We knew it was old, but so many things were missed. So, as an investor of myself, like, so what is the goal? Like, what is the goal for just individuals buying properties when it comes to inspections? What are we supposed to be looking for?
So it's funny. Another great question. It's when you buy, and I'm, pardon me, but I have a billion things and the ADHD kicks in, is when I hear historical, I always think of it's not historical, it's hysterical. I'm buying in a hysterical district because it gets to be an hysterical conversation. Inspections are not generic. They're not one off. You know, that big inspection that I talked about, which a lot of people call a property condition assessment, is standard. But when you think of a commercial property inspection, like one I would perform for you, it's a unique process. It's like going to the grocery store and everybody's got a different list and everybody's got a different experience. Everybody's got a different need. Really, your purchase should have started months before that with, I want to buy a building. You don't just wake up on a Friday morning and go, I think I'll buy a building today. What kind of building should I buy? I don't know. Maybe this brown one, maybe this red one. You know, this looks good. It really should be this huge formulation of an idea of, I want to buy a building. I think mixed use is the best way to go. I think I want to buy in a historical district. What's that going to look like? And then I need to set up my team, and my team starts and could start with, you know, my professionals that are showing me properties, the real estate agents. It could be my mortgage people. It could be my banker. It could be, and then lastly, in the old days, it used to be I'll set up my team of contractors. And those contractors will walk me through that building with each of their personal bias. And I've got nothing against contractors, but they all come with bias. If I've got a roofer, I'm going to buy a roof. If I've got an electrician, I'm going to rewire. If I've got a plumber, I'm going to put new plumbing in.
Yeah.
And that's fine in some buildings. But in other buildings, I kind of need that generalist that can speak in language I understand, you know, 3, 4 syllables max,
Yeah.
and then talk about this building in a very holistic manner. But it really had to start with long before, let's say, a person like me shows up, that professional need to go, okay, if you're buying in this town, in this historical area, then know that this is a factor, whatever that is. And we can call it the X or the Y or the Z factor. And no matter what we buy, now here's this book that the municipality provides me that says I have to work in this palette. I have to, there's a difference between rehabilitate and remodel. There's a difference between repair and replace. There's a difference between, you know, code, or, which is a 4-letter word, or do I make whole? And if I make whole, what's that look like? If I got a better, you know, what's that look like? And so all of that has to be this conversation. And that's why I love it so much, is I can sit there and go, okay, Jessica, you're looking for this building. I think it's awesome. What's your goals? That's a great question to ask on, you know, when we're interviewing each other, because you're interviewing me like I'm interviewing you as a client versus a relationship between, and I'll call myself a contractor and inspector, is what are your goals? What do you want me to do? You want me just to tell you how it sits today, or do you want me to tell you what needs to be done because I'm seeing this purple gorilla or whatever it is that rests there? So it's a really huge dynamic that has to occur on any building, but especially one of these special buildings like you're talking about in this historical district.
Yeah. So would the purchaser, so ours is unique in that we've always kind of searching and then they're like, hey, there's a last minute, go bid on this property, total risk, high risk,
Yeah.
as is, whatever. But in a normal circumstance, what you're saying is the process should kind of be like, don't go after a contractor per se, unless you have like a generalist that you understand. But can the inspector yourself go in then before a purchase and assess for the investor? Is that the goal? That would be sounds smart to
Absolutely.
me.
Absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
it's like I say with the shopping list scenario is I get to sit and talk with you and you can go, you know what? I'm an investor and my idea of a toolbox is I open it up and I've got an Amex card in it. And fine. Let's look at it at that perspective. Or you might say, I'm an investor, but I have relationships with electricians and plumbers. Okay. So that's something we're not going to deal with because you have your team. And so you would take and really develop what we'd call a scope of work based exactly on your needs. You might say, I need to, let's say, I want to convert this lawyer's office on the first floor to a coffee shop.
Yeah.
Great. So maybe that's a conversation we have to have as a professional inspector going, if you convert this to a coffee shop, are you going to just make coffee or are you going to toast bread? If you
Right.
toast bread, do you
Yeah.
have a steam oven or do you have a toaster? Or are you going to cook? Do you want to put a hot plate in and start making eggs?
Yeah.
All of these questions have to go in because maybe this building doesn't have any of that. You want that. So maybe I've got to start talking to you about, as a professional that knows buildings, maybe I'm going to help you understand that you need a hood and you need a suppression system and you need these things. Maybe I'm not code enforcement. I'm not an authority having jurisdiction in this particular area, town, city, but I might say, you know what, they might require you to put a grease trap or a grease interceptor in if you do this. So maybe you just want to be a coffee shop that has a really nice barista system that doesn't need a hood.
Right.
Awesome. Maybe your code says, or your local official says, you know what, you can get away with a type 1 hood, which does not need suppression, if you're only toasting bread.
Right. Yeah.
And so all of that becomes this conversation, and you lean on your inspector to be your first layer of consulting context.
I love that. Yeah, because I mean, so what we bought in a district, right? Like a city, I guess a town on a main street, and we were approached quite quickly, like, hey, this whole town wants to be turned over into some social, night scene. Like, this is what you guys want to do. Our goals for your space would be like a restaurant type area so that people can be outside. We're getting this license so they can have open containers outside. Like, we would definitely support you if you're going more of the restaurant side and then have an alcohol license, stuff like that. And we're sitting here like, oh gosh, okay, so what does that cost us? What is
Yeah.
that going to cost? Like, what are we looking at? So I don't know what you hear often, but the goal is to do as little, I guess not maintenance, but a little remodel as possible, turn it quickly so that you could start making profit off of it,
Yeah.
then to invest in a new building and then, start the process again. But there was no, like, it would have been great to have like a roadmap to someone come in there and say, hey, listen, it's a historic district. You want a restaurant? Guess what? You need a venting system. If I look at the back of your building, there's no place to vent this thing. So you're
Yep.
going through the roof. Guess what? You're a 4-story building. That is going to be expensive. Like all the things we really didn't know until we knew them. It was definitely a shock, a slap in the face. So
Yeah. And your professionals that are on your look at building side. Again, I don't want to say realtors, but a lot of times there's a difference between a residential realtor and a commercial broker
for
realtor.
sure.
A
Yeah.
huge difference
Yeah.
in their level of building knowledge and their level of consultantship. At least that's my experience. And there's a lot of them that specialize in just what you're talking about. So that when you're seeing that building in this, I mean, I was just in North Carolina last month, and their entire downtown in this little Charlotte suburb was an economic development area that painted on the sidewalk was really bizarre. These yellow stripes all over the place. And they basically painted a giant circle around these 4 blocks that said, you can walk around the streets with an open beer. But if you cross this line, you can't. And I'm like, yeah. And that was facilitating this whole growth area that you could bar hop or, and take it to go with you to do all these wonderful things in this downtown. And it sounds like you're approaching that kind of mentality. And with that comes benefits, with that comes losses. One of the things that we would never do on an inspector's side, but could do on a conversation side, should we know that area, economic money for you? Or is there grant money? Is there low interest loan money? Is there all that? We were at a place over the weekend as a family that this entire area was built up because it's in a canal zone. That the canals were built in the 1820s, 1830s. And they got a whole bunch of grant money to revitalize these canal towns. And so the whole area was bustling with this type of mixed use.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's one of those things, as a commercial inspector, we have a unique ability to see a building as systems, as a complete package.
Yeah.
Where, as a trained commercial inspector, that others might not. I mean, I would look at your property and go, okay, you want to do this on the first floor? Awesome. But how does that first floor affect 2, 3, and 4th floor? You talked about venting. If I've got to take a vent up through and kill closets, because I want to take this hood vent straight up with an upblast hood, so be it. I could look at that and see that, but I'm more interested in how's the fire rating between your first floor and that apartment where those people are living on the 2nd floor? Is that achieved? And not every person is trained for that, especially those that might not be versed or certified in commercial property inspections versus those that have that knowledge base. And so there's a lot of things that we could have possibly intercepted. I can't say we've been perfect, but we might have been able to intercept in that, a month or two ago's knowledge inquiries.
That's awesome. I wish, obviously the next property, I'm learning as we go, but let's say an investor gets you first, what it sounds like is the best step is to get an inspector like yourself, or I know you're not inspecting, but a commercial inspector to on site to get that holistic view, no bias. This is what you're looking at before we actually make the investment. Where do you come in after, okay, listen, Rob gave me awesome stuff. I'm going to go ahead and implement. I'm going to buy it, implement some of these things, make sure I'm watching these things. Is that where you guys fall in the process, or do you then carry throughout? How does that relationship look throughout?
Our relationship is dynamic. It can be whatever. And this is the wonderful thing about the world, is we have thousands of inspectors across North America and the rest of the world. And each of them begins every inspection with a proposal, just like you would do with anything else. And that proposal is unique to you and I. So I've done inspections, and I still rarely do inspections, but I've done inspections where I've been hired by you, and you might bring me in 3, 4, 5 months before the acquisition going, hey, Rob, I want to pay you. We're going to get a contract, and let's go look at buildings today. How much fun would that be? And I get to walk around and just point and talk and tell you about the building. So we might go look at 4 buildings today.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there gristing through going and looking at ROIs and looking at your process going, okay, this one would be great for us for this, but bad for us for that. And the next one, and usually it's go look at 2 buildings, have lunch, go look at 2 buildings and have a drink. And then that way we've looked at our 4 buildings and we kind of sit there and I become a valued member of your team.
Yeah.
Now that unfortunately people don't do that like they should.
Yeah.
To me, that's been some of the most joyous events I've ever had in my career. The more traditional is you've done something like that with your team being the ones that are all writing checks, and you've picked your building. And then we come into the process of, now you've picked this building, tell me what we got.
Yeah.
And then
More than-
I get to, through our conversation, write a proposal of exactly what you want me to do. You want me to come up with a game plan of a cost to remedy? I mean, that's, if I find something, this is what it will cost, which I'm not a contractor, so I'll probably be within 20%, but I won't be precisely accurate. Or do you want me just to come in here and I'll just give you my list?
Yeah.
And then do you want me to come in after phases of construction are done so that I can be your expert going, yep, they did that right, or this one's a little shaky? Or do you want me just to come in when it's all done and do a quality check? This is the unique dynamic that occurs between an inspector, specifically commercial property inspector, and the client. We
Yeah.
get to determine as a team, you and I, what you want me to do.
And that's great. So, and the question that leads me to now is like, for instance, today, having conversation, I feel like every conversation I have on a weekly basis comes back to, well, the code said this, but in this situation, the code is actually like you said, it's a remodel, it's not a replace, so we don't
Yep.
need this code. But even the contractors struggle when they work in the same area to understand the difference between which codes are, and we've lost time because they don't understand. Well, I'm just the investor. I don't know what codes. I'm not a contractor. Then the city comes in and says, oh, yeah, it's code A, B, and C. And they're not always right, if I'm being
Yep.
honest. So, do you, like, when you go and, like, let's say I hire you, we find a building together, which I think is great. I didn't even know that was an option to do that. That's cool. In my brain, I go to commercial realtor, walks you through properties, says what's good or
Mhm.
whatever. But from you give like a little bit more, right? Because you have like the
Yeah.
inspector knowledge of what is actually good in the bones
Yep.
of it, which I think is probably more important. We get the building, I get you in there, and then have you work with my contractors and say, but do you also work with the towns? So like, let's say I hire you through the process and say, I need to make sure that the codes that we have to comply to match the city codes.
Yeah.
Piece of
So
that.
key is complete transparency. That's the key. And so if I'm going to do a project, and I, in my mind, because I was just there 3 weeks ago in this little town in uh, as a Charlotte suburb, I'm in this 1858, 1860 building, and it's 3 stories tall, all masonry, and it's all small offices with some retail on the first floor. And I'm just walking around that building. There's no heat. There's no air conditioning. We had a window air conditioner in the room I was teaching out of that was struggling. But I'm thinking to myself, given your scenario of how I would tackle that as a rehabilitator or as an investor, is I would have to sit down, make a complete scope of work of everything I want to do. And then the authorities having jurisdiction, the city,
Yeah,
ultimately it's their sandbox.
right.
Once I cross that line and entered into that community, it's their sandbox. And I have to build everything exactly to what they want me to do because they hold every card. It's an autocracy. So when I go in there and I start talking to them, okay, this is what I want to do. I have a bathroom. I mean, this building, for instance, there's no accessibility in this building. Zero. It's high thresholds between the street and the first floor. It's all stairs. There's no elevator. There's none of that. And I would have to make sure that I have that very clearly defined with the municipality going, I'm not putting an elevator in. It's $200,000 per floor. I have 4 floors. I'm not going to put $500,000 worth of elevator in this building, correct? Right?
Yeah.
Right? And then I go, yeah, you're right. Okay, I
Okay.
got that written down. And then it's like I have original staircases. These are beautiful stairwells. They have a little bit of shape and they got a beautiful design. They're not 42 inches off the ground, right? Do I have to replace these hand railings? And then they start humming and then they're going, no, it's legal non-conforming or something, right? They use some big fancy word. Okay, so that's in, because you don't want to be 8, 9, 12 weeks down the construction cycle.
Yeah.
And it's one thing tearing a wall out and going, look, that was buried in the wall. I have to fix this. Got it.
Yeah.
Surprise. Somebody jumped out of the cake. But you don't want to be right there in the middle of that stairwell and they go, oh, yeah, and we got to replace this with fireproof concrete and you need hand railings at this height and it's going to have to be steel. This is not, this was what you approved.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, that may be something you're going to rely on your commercial inspector to help you, or at least you got the knowledge when you bought it that these are the conditions as it sat today that might come up tomorrow so that you can intelligently, and I always say, the purpose of an inspection is simple. It's to purchase the building intelligently. And so you purchased this building intelligently. I told you, because you hired me, that your stairwell is missing hand railings. It doesn't have hand railings on both sides. Your stairwell does not extend up. Your stairwell does not have a graspable hand railing. It's this beautiful, ornate 1874 hand railing that's this big around and not that big around. It has newel posts at each floor, so it's not continuous. I told you that. And so I would hope that as an intelligent consumer, you took those knowledge points, pointed those at your general contractor, and your architect, and then they formulated their plan so that they had the permission to keep it or the directive to get rid of it. But it's not going to be 6 weeks, or you don't get a certificate of occupancy because you didn't do this. I didn't know I had to do this.
Exactly.
That's
exactly what happens. I'm
Yep.
like, oh, I'm punching myself.
Yeah.
That's what happens. Well, and then it's like the time. I think about the time it takes my contractor to go down, talk to the inspectors, talk to the permit building, the building department. There's so much time wasted in things that weren't known. And it's not all on the contractor either, because again, he's a contractor, he's dealt with a lot of areas, but they're all unique, just like you say. Everything's unique, and you don't always peel back every layer of that banana before you figure out what's underneath. Like sometimes you can't help it, but if you inject an inspector in the front instead of, I could see very clearly now, that makes a heck of a lot of sense.
Yeah, like I said at the very beginning of our conversation, Jessica, is the CCPIA saw this gap between an investor like yourself and the building that they're purchasing versus this huge acquisitional process and getting more of an acquisitional view of that inspection. And so that's why we at the CCPIA, and I was not the originator. I've helped edit, but I'm not the originator. We've got, our executive director and the founders of the CCPIA have done this fabulous job of really setting up for success, but filling that gap and those knowledge points so that consumers could actually purchase their buildings with intelligence.
I love that. And that's going to save so much time and money, in the end.
I'd like to think so. I mean, there's when we look at our aging infrastructure across our country, there's a lot of buildings that are exactly like what you purchased. A lot of them.
Oh,
and understanding those dynamics and understanding those things is going to go a long way to making sure that is the right purchase for you. That building, maybe the building down the street would have been a better purchase. I don't know. But at least you would have known walking into it, those things. We're certainly not soothsayers, and we certainly don't have crystal balls, and we certainly are never going to bat 1,000 on any of this stuff. But we are practical in this approach that we can anticipate certain things based on experience and our knowledge.
I love that. And I know we're going into the final moments here, but I got to ask you about AI, because in our pre-podcast calls, we were talking a little bit about AI. We talked briefly about AI tools, and you had mentioned that they can analyze some inspection photos, potential issues, dramatically reduce some kind of time for inspectors. So where do you see AI having the biggest impact on the commercial inspection industry?
All of the software solutions that have been created in the last 5 years for commercial inspections, specifically for commercial inspections, all have AI components. It allows me, I might walk through that building that you purchased and I might take 500 photos during my walk through the building. And it will, when I upload those photos into my solution, my AI scrubs every photo and will look at each photo compared to normalities. Like it knows what a hand railing is. It also knows what the code says for hand railings. And so it will prompt me where it'll never substitute my eye. It'll never substitute my inquisitive nature. It'll never substitute my analysis. But it will take a 3 or 4 hour inspection report process and help me do it in an hour and a half or 2 hours. Because one of the things that I've heard for decades is it takes days, if not weeks, to get an inspection report out of a commercial property inspection. And my team, we were turning them out overnight. I would do a project for you in the morning. We'd walk through this building, and you had that report when you're drinking coffee tomorrow.
That's amazing.
And that's because of our processes, but it's also our ability to adapt some of these AI features.
I love that. Yeah, that's a big time save.
I mean, as an aside, there's a solution out there that I know I know firms that actually wear oculars like the meta glasses.
Really?
And they have somebody sitting in their office with all the screens, like the movie Spider-Man. I'm the man in the chair. I'm the man in the chair. And they're literally watching the inspection and filling the report out because all of the photos are coming back to home base live. And that person in the chair is actually helping their team go, look over there a little tighter. There's something in the corner. And it's almost like a video game. There's days like that, Jessica, that get me so riled up that that I'll go to my wife. I go, I think it's time to go back in the field. I think this sounds like so much fun because AI and this technology now has hit that new plateau.
And I'm glad to hear you're embracing it. There's so many industries that they're still kind of a little afraid, which is understandable. Again, super huge. I'm not replacing humans with AI, but we're very big at using AI to menial tasks. Get rid of the menial task. Dive deeper with your human edge, but dive deeper, use it, quicken the process, make it more efficient. Like it sounds like that's super cool. I'm gonna go look that up too, because that's pretty cool. So now that I've learned all this, but if someone's listening that are like, oh man, I didn't even know this was a thing, where can they find you? Where can they get more information about how they can start the process of actual building, hunting, if you will, the right way?
So a couple of things. If you want to be a commercial property inspector, you can always go to our website, ccpia.org. We're also on LinkedIn and all those other things. Just search CCPIA or Certified Commercial Property Inspectors Association. If you are somebody looking for an inspector, on our website, we have a Find an Inspector. It's a geographical search. You can go as wide as 500 miles, but only certified commercial property inspectors are listed. So even if you're just a member, you're not listed until you're fully certified on our website. And so again, that's just ccpia.org. And then you go up onto the top little search and it says find an inspector and pop. You put in your zip code, put in your address, put in your city, and you'll find somebody there that's gone through the process to be certified.
I love that. Well, I learned a lot, Rob, and I know I'm going to be talking to you in the near future. Once I fix all the building stuff that we missed, hopefully sooner than later in the next prospecting, I would definitely love to see how this process would be very different than what we did.
Anytime. Maybe we can do something collaborative together.
Okay, that sounds amazing. And I'm sure I'll have questions for you in the future. But thanks for being on the show, Rob. And to our listeners, our audience, again, always thank you for tuning in to the Future Proof Leader. And we will see you next time.